Good afternoon, everyone. This is Vaishali Gambhir. I'm part of Knowledge and Advisory team at SHRM. I welcome you all to SHRM India Annual Conference and Expo 2023. In this hall right here, we're going to have a very insightful discussion on a topic that is very relevant for us at HR as business leader in the organization. The topic being the future of employee rewards and benefits adapting to changing work environments. Session partner Advantage Club. But before I invite the speakers on stage, I would want to play a video for you. Please pay attention. Thank you so much. Pranav, you can please play the video.
Digitize your gifting and let your employees choose from a curated catalog. My gift, my choice.
Happy Diwali!
सुना था मेहनत का फल मीठा होता है, पर कभी-कभी कुकर होता है.
Still giving the same boring gifts to your employees? Switch to Advantage Club. Digitize your gifting and let your employees choose from a curated catalog. My gift, my choice.
Thank you so much. It was fun and very relevant, I guess. So on the topic here now, the right employee rewards and benefits program needs to address the individual needs of the employees, from where they are in their lives to what their roles are in the organization. Now this panel discussion is going to explore how the changing work environment as well as the hybrid work models are changing employee preferences and how the technology is shaping this talent landscape. With this, I would like to invite our esteemed speakers on stage. Please join me in welcoming Sanjeev Sehgal, Chief People Officer, Mercy Corps, Saswati Sinha, Head Human Resources, eValue Serve, KS Bakshi, Group Head Human Resources, Interglobe. The session is being moderated by Raj Tanwar, Chief Strategy Officer and HR Head, Advantage Club. We welcome you here. The floor is all yours. Thank you so much.
Hello. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I hope all of you had a good lunch. Everybody got lunch, am I right? Usually in conferences, it's very difficult to calculate. So, let me set a context a little bit. Here we are going to talk about future of total rewards in the adapting work environment. Reward and recognition is a substantive part of it, so just thought. So let me start with a little bit history and involve all of you also in this conversation. You know, earning is a very, very important, I would say, process that we do in our life. And we all make sure that every day we earn and then life moves on. But if you go back and look at the history of earning, it goes way back in the barter system where skills were exchanged for skills. Then came a situation where there were disproportionate amount of demand for low-end skills, very less demand for high skills, but then there was an imbalance that happened. So there came currency. Is there anybody in this group who knows when the currency was invented in this world and who did it? By the way, Advantage Club will give you an award for that if you guess it right. And not the cooker. So way back in 1600 BC, which is what we call today in today's modern world Turkey, in the enterprise, in that era of long back Persian Empire, first time in the empire of Lida, first time the currency was introduced. And now I'll bring you fast forward to Industrial Revolution. What happened with currency? Skills were paid, right skills were paid for the right amount of money. Very simple. That's what happened. Now, what started happening in the era of industrial revolution in particular, there were a lot of exploitation of skills that started happening. Instead of 8 hours work for 12 hours, no leaves, and so on and so forth. So there came the concept of actual legitimization of wages, and the wages came into picture. That okay, you will be paid this much of amount for this much of time. Time became a very important and critical factor. Then came the concept of salaries, because job satisfaction and job safety both were very, very important. Fast forward 19, I would say 20s, the era of trade union brought in a concept of benefits, because again, there was an exploitation that started happening and people felt that it should be legitimate. So when benefits started coming in, another aspect got added to it, which is welfare. And the history then after that goes on and on. When we started adding incentives, we started adding bonuses, employee stock option, learning and development, and this field became what it is today, which we call beautiful total reward. It's a very, very essential element of our career. All of us as HR professionals, we practice it in some or other manner, or at least it touches us in between 25th to 1st when we get our salary in some or other manner. So in that context, total reward has grown beyond CNB. There is reward and recognition, there is well-being, there is stock option. There is such a huge ocean today. So in that context, when I have such a learned panel, let me start with asking all three of you in one sentence each, if you could give me how the landscape of total reward is today impacted post-pandemic and in the technology world that you see today. So any one of you, let's start with KS and move on to Saswati and then Sanjeev.
Thank you, SHRM, for getting us over here. Raj, to be honest, if I look around various companies, especially in India, I still find this concept of the total rewards is limited to base salary and those variable pay, some part of the flexi components, and so on and so forth, maybe annual bonus. But I think, as you mentioned, before COVID and definitely after pandemic, things have started changing. People are more conscious of the fact that the employee needs overall sustainable efforts in terms of their well-being, in terms of their shared values, in terms of the purpose of the organization. And hence, people have started moving towards what is now called as the total reward. Of course, there are challenges, although technology is the enabler, but there are challenges in terms of how to sustain the wage bill, how to really reward the disrupting talent, what I call as the disrupting talent. People come and go, how to really reward for the innovation. But those are the things which we as HR or the business leaders, we keep on crafting. But the landscape is definitely changing and technology is helping.
Thanks. I think I'll just add to what Mr. Bakshi said. I think the change is, the problems remain the same. Everybody is unhappy with their total rewards. Everybody feels they are paid less. Everybody feels they are doing more and their peer is being paid more and they are being paid less. That challenge remains the same. I think what has changed is the agility with which the organization has to move forward and figure out how to manage this expectation and change. There are different generations which have come in. Technology has enabled a lot of data. Excel. From Excel move away to more agile AI-enabled data. We get to know people are unhappy, happy, what's happening, what's not happening. We are talking about not just your salary. We are saying what was the trigger? Was your role the trigger? Was your boss the trigger? Was the environment the trigger? Was the culture the trigger? These are all part of the overall holistic, what I call as reward. So I think we have enough data now. So we have to be more agile to meet the challenges. Challenges really have not changed much.
Thanks. No, I do think this is a topic which is top of mind for a lot of HR professionals and business leaders too, actually, apart from employees. One of my very initial experiences around this topic of satisfaction with pay, Saswati, as you were saying, is when we did the survey and we got a score, I think like a lower score, possibly just above the first quartile, and like our consultant was saying, that is fine, don't worry about it, because this is not like that low score is still like a good score when you really compare to the rest of the organization. So yes, it is definitely a challenge. But I do think like the things are changing here. And I've been in compensation for quite some time. Like just from being like an hygiene factor, like you needed to pay and make sure that people had the medical insurance and stuff like that. I do think there's an opportunity out there to make total rewards as a differentiator. And especially in the hybrid environment, I do think people are looking for more than just the money coming into their bank accounts, right? And I think what that is definitely like a treasure hunt. I think a lot of leaders are trying to figure out what is that sweet spot. But I do think there's an opportunity to look at total rewards as a big differentiator. And also like redefining what do you mean by benefits. And maybe, you know, as we talk about the further questions, we can talk about like what do you mean by benefits?
So true, and I think Sanjeev, you said something very beautiful that resonates with me is that total reward plays a very, very important role in EVP to differentiate yourself, which is the employee value proposition. So let's move forward and put the context further. Today's environment, when we see there's a lot more that we talk about diversity, inclusion, belongingness. At the same time, we have diverse operations, you have dispersed geographies. Saswati, my question is to you. How do you ensure equity in rewards, whether it's total reward or rewarded recognition? How do you ensure that? Because equity is very, very important and people have to feel it's fair and they've been given the right kind of importance.
So Raj, if the expectation is I have all the answers, I don't. I think Mr. Bakshi might still have. So what we have been doing, I can only talk about some of the successful practices that has helped us bring in a equitable. See, there are certain biases in everybody's mind. We know that. So out of sight, out of mind is one bias. In a hybrid environment, if I'm not seeing that person in and out, is not there, coming in 6 months later, yes, work speaks, but work speaks to the reporting manager. Whether it goes up or not, we don't know. So there is also geographical nuances. There is also gender nuances. Somebody has come from maternity leave, there is a bias in the mind that hey, her focus is on the child, not on the work. That's why things are dropping, you know. So there are all kinds of biases, and hybrid has not made it easy. If I see the person in office, if I see the person working, then I'm like, oh great, something is happening. I see the effort. Otherwise I don't. So I think that's been our biggest challenge. So what has helped us is one practice that we do is enormous amount of education. I think that's what we have been, that's the first thing we have been doing. It's continuous process. EvaluServe is continuously educating. Online, offline, focus group discussions. It's a continuous process, very rigorous process that we have built. Second thing that we do, of course, is use technology. The pay audits, the listening, we have a listening tool, AI-enabled listening tool that helps us to understand where the pain points are. If people are feeling excluded, it gives triggers on words like, I'm feeling excluded, it's not an inclusive culture, or my RM is not including me. So that's a second thing. Technology has really enabled a lot of these data points, which helps us do the audits, which again helps us bring in an overall holistic reward philosophy. Third thing, I think what we are starting to do and we have not done in the past is we are trying to make it as a part of the strategy. It is not just, you know, budgeting exercises going on. We are not saying, oh, we will keep X USD for reward and recognition, or this much percentage increment depending on the P&L for next year's salary increment. We are not doing that. We are saying strategically, where do we want to go? And how do we want to drive inclusivity and equity in our pay, in our rewards, in our recognition. Recognition, by the way, becomes a roster, right? Is month I've given this person, next month I should give that person, next month it's not about the performance and the yardsticks. So I think we are trying to bring a strategic approach to it than just keep it as one-off.
Very nice, and I appreciate first training, then technology, and then strategic intent behind it. Let me pick from there only, since you talk about technology with the rise of data, AI. KS, this question is to you. I often see reward and recognition. There's a lot of transformation happening in this area. You know, we just saw cooker to whatever, my choice, my reward. What's your view on it? Where it is heading, and how do you think reward and recognition is impacted by data, AI, technology in place?
Okay, I think there are 2 or 3 parts that I have picked up in this question. One is the technology, which Saswati has very nicely has explained, but I'll just briefly touch upon. But before that, your question was, what is the role of reward and recognition in total reward? I think I need not really talk much about in front of the August gathering. All of us know what is so importance and criticality of the reward and recognition for an employees. All of us know that employees do like to be appreciated. All of us know employees have a need that somebody really recognize them. Gone are the days it has moved away from the certificates, trophies, and email appreciation or those thank you cards. I think the technology has really enabled it very strongly, right? There's a focus attention. There's so much of options available in terms of the rewards. There's so much of peer-to-peer recognition that has started happening, which we did not see before. And most important thing is the access of the technology by way of mobile phone, right? Social media and so on and so forth. I think that has really helped this whole concept of, and it is really helping business leaders, managers in the organization to really propagate, because HR or the company or the organization will formulate certain rules, but then it has to be triggered from within. It cannot be driven by once in a month, once in a quarter, once in a year, some email goes and people have to nominate. I think those days are beyond us now, and it has to be instantaneous. It has to be real, event-based focused recognition. That's where the technology is helping. Our organization, we are also beneficiary of that, both in terms of the technology enabler as well as the lots of program that we run. There's another element of what is the reward and recognition implies in the organization is how well we stitch it to our core values and our shared values and the core philosophy of the organization. So, for example, if we really talk about the values in the organization, we talk about, let's say, competencies that we expect people to exhibit. We talk about the focus on the group learning or the team building. For example, in our company, we do have awards on each of these things. We call it Uplabdhi, Utkrisht, Dakshata, and so on and so forth. Which is over and above, beyond the usually monthly, weekly, quarterly awards, right? And that really helps when the entire leadership team sits and goes through with the nominations and really identify who are the clear winners, and not necessarily there could be one winner, there could be multiple winners also. I think that's where I have seen in our organization that has really helped people to strengthen what the organization says in terms of the values and what we preach. So technology, the personalization, and the alignment to the core values and philosophy really helps in terms of driving that agenda of reward and recognition.
Truly, I love the last part that you said, married with your values and purpose. But there is a very big barrier, and that is changing need of today's workforce. When we look at boomers, Gen Z, X, so on and so forth, there's very, very high need of where am I, what's happening for me. And Sanjeev, this question is to you, since you've seen both Indian and US landscape. There's very high demand of personalization that I see. My well-being, my choice, my reward, my learning, my compensation, my benefits. Where do you think it's heading towards, and how do you manage such kind of changing expectations and such a diverse workforce need?
I think that's a great question, Raj. And I do think this is where some of the points that have been mentioned by my colleagues here need to be brought into consideration, right? Education. I think education, transparency about what exactly is total rewards, what is the philosophy of the organization, how does it tie to your culture and the values, and how does it tie to the strategy, needs to be clarified. And managers, I think, play a very, very important role, because at the end of the day, whatever generation you are, your manager is so critical. How do you then train your managers to really understand what ticks, what are the things that really your team really wants? I think that to me is really important. Of course, today technology really helps us. You have your annual surveys, you can do pulse surveys, but nothing can actually replace your one-to-one conversation. So I do think managers play an important role. HR, obviously trying to digest all of that information and then coming up with the right programs is so critical. I think the point of listening. I'll give one example where and it's also with the pandemic, right? At one point, and this is a US example, we had a transportation allowance that we used to give our team members. It's about $750 that you can actually use for, like the train or parking and stuff like that. But obviously nobody's traveling. And then we were listening to our team members, and then we actually used the same amount of money. We actually added some more, couple of $100 more, and we actually changed that into a well-being allowance, where we actually made it easy for team members to actually spend that amount of money. Of course, we worked with like a partner to really help us do that, where they could actually use it for going to the gym or making their life easy. It was possibly one of the best recognized initiatives that the organization could actually do. In terms of like you said, different generations have different needs. Some people really wanted to go to the spa actually, and some people wanted to go to the gym. We just made it flexible without the headache of HR trying to solve everything. So that's one example I can give you in terms of listening, education, equipping the manager, and then acting on the information that you get.
Beautiful. That also draws my attention towards a very important aspect that in most of the conferences I've heard, which is what's the future of HR, and here we're talking about future of reward, which is being challenged by different kind of working models that we have. Right? We have full-time employees, retainers, consultants. Now they started a new term, work from home, hybrids, gig. And there's so many terms that are coming. It's never ending. Shashwati, this question is to you. Given today's landscape, what are the 2 or 3 elements that you would like to share which helps in kind of strengthening or future-proofing the reward strategy? What are the essentials that you feel that this has to be done bare minimum across different kind of employment models that will keep people happy? I know it's very difficult to keep them happy, but that's what we are trying to see. How can we achieve that?
Yeah, so again, there are no easy answers. I can only talk about my experience and what we found has been successful. I think the first thing, like I said before, first thing we have to keep in mind is that we cannot be late. See, time spent pondering is time lost. So agility, I think, is the first criteria. People have different needs. You can never ever satisfy everyone. The fairness, the transparency, the value, along with that, the agility. You have to be agile. How can you be agile? You can be agile only by using technology. You should have a technology platform which enables you to gather the insights real time and then be agile enough to be able to cater to those needs. Total rewards depends on many things. It depends on your role, it depends on your expectations, it depends on your level, it depends on the organization's profitability, it depends on what is the strategy of the organization. You have to tie all of that together and be agile. I think that's where it is very important. The first thing we should do is enable ourselves with technology to be able to be agile and then tie in it with the values and the strategy like Mr. Bakshi has said.
Awesome. I really appreciate, and I think agility does play a very important role. Since I'm asking a very high level question, let me go granular now and put KS into a spot. So, KS, what is the right balance of the components that we have here, right? Because there are so many components, the dimensions are multi-dimension right now. What's the best composition that helps to motivate people in terms of putting the structure in place? What's your view on that?
Your question is more on the total rewards or on the executive pay? Total rewards. Okay. I think it's slowly and steadily it is organizations are realizing, business leaders are realizing it's very important, especially mid-manager level and above. Probably I'll keep my answer for that level first. It's very important we define as an organization what is that total reward is, right? Of course, pay, perks, benefits, variable pay and so on and so forth is there. But apart from that, what kind of investment that we look for in future in terms of skilling for the individual, in terms of learning. There are individuals, when we talk about the personalized options, there are people who really want to pay off their loan, education loan, housing loan. There are people who come up, they say, I really need 20 lakhs more for my parents' insurance. I think that really constitutes the total reward kitty we need to define. fine. And then from there, the question, we come to the basics now again. It starts, what should be the fix, what should be the variable, what should be immediately available, what should be available linked to certain, achieving certain milestones. Along with that is a long-term and short-term. If the immediate success is desired, then obviously it's a short-term amount is more put in the short-term benefits. If it is a over a period of time, especially for senior people, then it has to be a long-term perspective. The question is also around whether it should be delivered or the amount is given by way of cash or by way of equity. I think it's a combination of various things, and that's where the technology is also helping. I think we are all moving away from the typical standard conventional market driven strategy कि उस company में इतना मिलता है, hence हम भी वही देंगे. And I think I really don't remember when was the last time I did the compensation benchmarking in my company, because individuals and especially millennials have different needs. So I think those are the factors in a very short time, in the interest of the time. I think those are the things that we need to be mindful of. That's right.
Absolutely right, and I think creativity is going to be the future. So my last question, since we are just up to time, Sanjeev, is to you. We have done so much, we've discussed so much, and we know the future. The very important aspect of it is impact. Impact has to be seen. Then only you'll be able to say that, okay, total reward or reward recognition has a place in the future of work. How do you measure it rather than simply looking at attrition or a couple of motivation? Do you feel there is any innovation that's happening in that area too? And what's the best way of measuring the impact which is significantly visible to people?
I wish I had the answer to that. I'll be bottling it and becoming like a multi-millionaire. But yeah, if I had that. But I do think it is important, right? Because what is your business leader asking? Like, this was a conversation I had with one of my board members, is what's the return on investment? So why should we invest in more benefits? What's the return that the organization is really going to get? So to me, like, that's a very critical question. And with all the technology and all the data that we have, I do think, and I think this is something that we also discussed in the main session, if you were there, about data and the analytics, right? So how can you actually use some of these data points to demonstrate that this investment is actually giving us the return that we want, which to me, like, some of the indicators, you could look at benefit utilization, just to really understand, whatever benefits that we are actually fighting the management and listening to the team members, is it actually being used or not? So I think benefit utilization is one. Is it improving productivity? Of course, it's a very difficult topic, right? How do you measure productivity? But then, if there is a way for you to actually do those experiments to say, by putting this intervention, we managed to actually improve productivity for this employee segment. And I remember doing some work around this long back when I was here in India in Target, where we actually asked team members, because it's always a paradox, right? Team members want greater benefits, we have to manage the cost. So I think just going back to the team members and giving them those competing demands to say, do you want benefit X or benefit Y, and then picking one and then going back and measuring the impact on that particular group. So, but I do think it requires a lot of experimentation. I think agility also needs experimentation and setting the right expectation. So I do think that you need to look at the data and then trying to see how can you measure productivity and how can you actually look at some benefit utilization impacting the productivity.
Very nice, absolutely. If it's relevant, people are consuming it, obviously you've done something right for the people. So since we are heading towards the closure, I hope you remember I started with the history of mankind, the way we started from Stone Age, then skill barter system. Barter system actually started because there was a disproportionate exchange of skills, and the people feel that there is a disparity in innovation can happen. Fast forward today, we still feel that we are not paid enough. So the human beings have not changed. The cycle is same despite the induction of currency, skills, benefit. Everything is given, but still I feel that more can be done. Because, as I said, human expectation is endless, but at the same time, human is the fulcrum of innovation and world that's happening. So that brings us to an end to this conversation, but we are very happy to pick up one or two questions. Since we're just up time, but we can pick up one or two questions if you have. Yes, please. Somebody can give the mic, please. Or we don't mind giving it.
So I come from Sri Lanka. We have a hyperinflation at the moment in the country, right? Most of you must be aware. And how does a concept like total rewards resonate possibly when you have a hyperinflation, environment with hyperinflation, and the conversation becomes so much so difficult, right? Because you everything is expensive and you look for cash. What are your thoughts around it? If you can?
It is the same case in Egypt. I also look after MEA and we face the same problem, right? Inflation, and people were saying that we will live for even this much higher because there is my children education. So we introduced a short-term concept called COLA, cost of living allowance. Yeah. What we did was we looked at the overall profitability of the business unit, and we didn't just look at Egypt, we looked at the whole MEA region, and we said that fair enough, depending on the inflation, whatever the inflation is, this much money extra will be given to people and it will be reviewed quarterly. So we added that component. That component has helped us to retain 100% of our employees because we took it out of our profits, out of our margins, and we say because of this reason, for the time being, it's not a long-term thing, it's a short-term, but helps you tide over. So I think for us that worked. So maybe a short-term you can look at the overall profitability, because money is not easy to come by, you have to fight for it, but look at the overall profitability, the cost benefit of attrition, and then create a program which is short-term.
Maybe I have a solution for you. Maybe after this session, I'll meet you separately.
It is a fixed. What we did was level-wise, we made it a percentage of their base pay. Every quarter, it is reviewed. It does not come with your base pay. Your fixed salary is different, and this becomes a allowance. Over, it will be rolled back. Yes.
Yes, please go.
Okay, I think who better than Raj, gentlemen, who represent Advantage Club. So maybe you like to say something?
See, a very important aspect of benefit within that, reward and recognition, that most of the companies, what they do is, they end up picking a reward partner where rewards expire by the end of a particular time. Let me tell you what happens. Let's take an example. I have given you an award or a reward of 1,000 points. And I say that 31st March it will expire. Now, how is that possible? You have given me an award that expires on 31st March. Now, that is not fair. And I think at Advantage Club, we are challenging the basic genesis of award. That why should an award expire? It's endless. It's still life that I should have. That's one. Second is, with an award, some bit of motivation has to be there to acquire it over a period of time. I was just talking to KS, and Saswati was telling that on our platform, people get a lot of points. But you'll be surprised to know where people burn these platforms. Either they burn it during the sale time, like right now in Amazon and Flipkart, and there is happening. So they get cash back, 10% on the top of it. Otherwise, you'll be surprised they gather the point in the maximum thing that is purchased, is mobile phone. You'll be surprised. People save their points and they add their own money by the end of it and then they buy it. Now that gratification is far more higher than the way we started by a cooker or a sipper or anything like that. People feel so happy about it. And I give you a very small example. I used to visit Hyderabad very often. So I used to head HR at Concentric prior to this. So there was a person who had put 6 sippers, 2 cups and a couple of others on the desk. So I asked him, you love so many sippers? How do you drink in so many? He said, I don't love, you love in HR. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, I'm a team leader. Every time my team wins, you end up giving me the sipper. So I by purpose kept it for you. I felt very bad. I said, and that day I realized you're doing something wrong. Next time I went along with the sipper, there was a small little picture of an old woman that this guy was handing over something. And I said, who's this? So this guy said, I'm actually an orphan from a parental standpoint of view. My dadi brought me up. And this time the point that you gave me, I got something for my dadi. So the picture that you see right now is of her. So that's the impact of award. And sometimes what we misunderstand, that I need award for me. I don't need it for myself. If the same award you give it to my son or my wife, it has a different impact and significance. So what we do, we personalize award to that extent, And I said, I'll not sell it here. But then, and then there are a lot of things which goes on the top of it, you know, well-being, hobby club with different. All this have come on one platform. The life becomes easy, and most important, it should expire, Baba. Why it should expire? It's my money, my point. Why do you take it away? That's where it comes from. Thanks. Thank you so much for such a beautiful audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, panelists. Audience, thank you so much for being so participative and being so patient here. We'll have the next session at 5:10 in the same hall. I hope to see you there. Thank you.